Hey guys, so just a reminder that this episode will unfortunately be just a little extra. There's no actual plot line going on in this, and I'm losing my voice, so I will not be doing any credits for this. It's all me, Max Sunset, and there will be no editing. This is gonna be completely just off the cuff, so enjoy! Hey guys, this is Max Sunset, and today I come to you not as Zoey, but as me, the person behind the scenes. Unfortunately, I'm in the middle of midterms, so last month's episode will come out a bit late. Seeing as this is unfair to you, my listeners, I decided to take a couple of my study breaks and just bring to you this additional content episode. I promise that I will post the next episode next weekend after I'm finished my midterms and can edit it better. But for now, I come to you all from behind the scenes of the podcast. My purpose in this additional content episode is to hopefully entertain you guys with the circumstances surrounding the podcast. This includes what inspired me to write a podcast, where the storyline came from, and even a little background about me, including what my role is in this podcast. So to start, what inspired me to write this podcast? Well, over the summer, I was working in my university library cleaning the shelves, and I have since advanced to collections, but over the summer I was literally just dusting books, taking them off the shelves, cleaning the shelves, and then returning the books all back to their places. Super exciting, I know. But this allowed me to explore podcasts a little bit more. So I was re-listening to Welcome to Night Vale, woo, when Pride was going on. Now, I couldn't go, which really sucked, but what sucked more was that I was told by an acquaintance of mine that aces didn't really belong in Pride. Now, this acquaintance was pan, not straight, not against LGBTQ+, but part of it, really. I expected this person to be okay with the topic, and yet when I talked to them, they began saying that aces don't belong in Pride because everyone is fighting for the right to have sex with whomever they like without being judged for it, whereas asexuals were fighting to not have sex. I was really shocked and kind of hurt, but that's not to say that this was unexpected. Over the past couple of years, basically, I found that as an ace, there were just as many people who accepted you who may not be allies of the community at all, as there were people who did not accept you that were, in fact, allies. It's a little hard to process, so here I was listening to an LGBTQ plus friendly podcast and being rejected due to misconceptions and erasure. When I realized that I could do something about it, I could have a say. This leads us into our next little segment. Where did the storyline come from? Well, actually, I already had the story. Back when I first started writing, I was awful. I didn't actually describe the scenery, and most of my writing was just dialogue. Now, this is absolutely terrible when writing a novel or short story, but not actually all that bad when writing a script. I looked back to my second story ever, written back when I was in grade 9, and started thinking. Now, back when I wrote this, people pointed out to me that people were actually really cute together, like Jazz and Morgan. At the time, though, there was no romance in my story. They were just friends, really good friends, and they were the two quiet girls who had an affinity with one another. That is to say, they would really get each other. At the time, I was writing two best friends. There was no Andrew, as well as no other characters, and orientations were not a thing. No one had an orientation because I had no such exposure to it. I'd never really liked anyone, nor did I know many people who did, and I just kind of assumed everyone was like me, and occasionally there was an exception. Yeah, by the way, I'm aromantic. Well, no, I recently found out I'm QPO romantic and asexual. So, as you can guess, having no romantic attraction was what I kind of considered the norm. Um, so now, when I was thinking of writing my podcast, I started thinking back to this old story and how people commented about Jazz and Morgan, and I immediately wanted to start working on it again. Now, all the names remained, and the original premise remained, but I changed a lot about it. For one, the story was not linear in the original, so I had to make it linear. Otherwise, it would not work very well as a podcast. Furthermore, the characters developed orientations and even changed a bit personality wise, except for Jackson. Jackson was always an unintentional jerk that spoke in cliches without realizing that they were not okay to say all the time. Now, also, I had to add an ending since my original was never actually finished. Now, although this original ending was eventually scrapped, because, yeah, one of my cast members was quite distraught about it, the new ending I show you is much better. Moving on, here's a little background info about me. I'll keep this fairly short for a bio because I'm honestly not very interesting. I guess the only thing that I can really talk about that would be of any interest to anyone would be how I found out my orientation and how it all worked out when I came out. Now, in the A spectrum, there are so many orientations that I didn't know existed until recently. So, let me tell you that I'm currently questioning, and before yesterday, I identified as Aro Ace, which means I'm asexual, so I feel no sexual attraction towards anyone of any gender, and that I identified as aromantic, which meant that I feel no romantic attraction to anyone of any gender. Now, I use this as a past tense because I recently found out that there is something called QPO romantic, which means that I feel no romantic attraction towards anyone of any gender, but I want to have a romantic relationship. And considering this may be a more accurate description of what I feel, I might identify with that from now on. But I'm still questioning because I'm actually kind of okay with being single right now, despite wanting to experience romance at some point. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes. Okay. Now, it might just be curiosity, but it might also be my orientation, so thus, still questioning. But when I first found out, it was actually because, well, I was talking to two of my friends during lunchtime, one Ace and one Pan, and they were talking about the hardships. Now, when asexuality was mentioned, I was curious as to what it was, and when she told me, I responded, yeah, like, but isn't everyone like that? And she talked to me for a bit more before telling me that I should probably look up the terms for asexual, aromantic, along with others like gray A and demi, and after about a night in front of my computer, I had finally found words that I believe described me. And it was great, but then it wasn't really. Now this happens to everyone, especially in the ace kind of orientation. Because society kind of tells you what you should be, and when you're not, you feel like something must be wrong with you, because I had always assumed that I would change and find someone and, just go ahead to have a future with that person. But then I couldn't, because I was different. Now, society in general just makes you think that being allosexual, which just means you have a sexual attraction towards people, whatever your preference is the norm. And suddenly I didn't fit into that neat little box. My friends eventually helped me feel that I was fine and that nothing was wrong with me. And within a couple of weeks, I had a Google slide presentation ready for the purpose of coming out. Yeah, I'm a complete dork. I always wonder if my coming out story is strange because it's certainly not normal from what I hear from others. But long story short, when I came out, they were fine, but as time went on, I felt less and less acceptance from my mom and my grandma. I still don't know if they accept me, but I know it's a bit better now. It strikes me that people who will accept you being ace and arrow, the least, are actually your family, but that seems to be consistent with most cases I've heard of. Okay, this segment lasted a bit longer than I actually hoped for, so let me study some more and I'll record the next segment afterwards. Sorry. Okay, I'm back. And finally, what is my role in the podcast? Well, I write the podcast for one. This you know. I also star in it as Zoey. This you also know. However, I also help direct when I'm not in a scene. And I'm usually the one at the end of every episode with the credits. And I edit it all together after we're done. Which is actually why we're kind of behind on this episode. Sorry guys, but education takes precedence over podcast. Moreover, I recruited everyone who is in the podcast, recorded all the background noise and the sound effects, and I get everyone together for recordings over at my place / Helena's and Rachel's place for now. And all of my fellow cast members are really a huge help. For example, Richard plays Andrew, who's going to be in this upcoming episode, and helps me by looking over all the Andrew scenes and editing the lines to make sure that the character stays true to our joint interpretation of the character. And Lily, Caleb, and Ivy have all at one point helped me out with technology because I'm a techno idiot. And technology in general does not like me. Greg also wrote our theme song, which is absolutely amazing, and even took over the role of Chip and the guard in the first episode when I couldn't find anyone. My roommates, Helena and Rachel, have been on the cast with me from the very beginning, even though their roles have been changed a couple times. Sorry, guys. Oops. And we still have a bunch of cast members who have actually yet to be on an episode but are fantastic enough to still be in it with us, despite not really having their chance in front of the mic yet. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. Everyone is honestly amazing, and I could never have done any of this without every single one of them. I love my cast members and hope they'll all stay with us despite where life and education leads them in the future. And I'm really glad I started all of this, and I hope they all know how grateful I am to have them all, especially since a lot of them have been recruited very last minute. Shout out here for Gail, Ivy, and Greg. You guys had very little forewarning before being asked to be in your roles, and thank you for putting up with me. And thank you for all our listeners. Again, I promise the actual episode will be out, and stay safe, and remember, everyone holds secrets.